So Jenni is quite a multi-talented lady, and through her storytelling, performances, recordings and workshops, Jenni helps people experience the ancient healing wisdom held in told stories, both for children and adults. So let's have a warm welcome for Jenni Cargill-Strong.
Thank you. I relate more to the word enchantivist, in a sense, than activist, and I feel very, very honoured to be invited to speak tonight. I would like to attempt to answer the questions that Nagara have asked us to address with a story. And I would invite you to suspend your disbelief and shift from your head down into your belly, down into your heart. Let your belly go floppy. Some of us women are used to holding it in, let it go flop. And just sink down, have a few deep breaths as I'll tell you a story, and I promise that it will make sense, hopefully. I'm planning for it to make sense at the end of why I would choose to tell this story in this context. Golden Heart. Once there was a little boy with golden hair and golden skin and a golden heart. Golden Heart was his name, but his dad was awfully sad. He was awesomely, morbidly, chronically sad. Hey Dad, why are you so sad? But the wind blew his words away, and his father wasn't listening anyway. But as the little boy grew, his heart caught the bug. The sadness germ, and he got so awfully sad. He was awesomely, morbidly, chronically sad. Hey Dad, why am I so sad? But the wind blew his words away, and his father wasn't listening anyway. Well, one fine day, his dad passed away. Of grief, they say. He flew off to heaven with wings and a harp, and was never sad again. But Golden Heart said, "Oh, Daddy Dad, you were so sad, you made me mad, and I vow and declare, I will never again be sad." Then Golden Heart took his beautiful heart, he threw it in a tin box, a rusty old tin box, and he threw the key into the wide and wonderful sea. And the King of the Sea caught the key and said, "Oh, my son, my golden one, what have you done to yourself, my son?" But the waves washed his words away, and the boy wasn't listening anyway. Yet at night he dreamed of a great mermaid with deep green eyes and silver hair. She took him way down there, down to a cave far beneath the waves. She said, "Listen, young man, listen to my plan. Take this key you threw away. Unlock the tin your heart is in, or it'll be your head that you live in." But the waves washed her words away, and in the morning he forgot what she did say. Well, not before long, Golden Heart was grown with a son of his own. Golden Heart Jr. was his name, was his son's name, and Golden Heart Jr. played in the rain. Yet at night, he dreamed of a great mermaid with deep green eyes and silver hair. She told him tales from Earth's end, and they played all night in the sparkling, wonderful sea. One day, the boy asked his dad, "Hey Dad, well, what does it mean to be a man? Do you really keep your heart in a tin? Because, well, that's what my silver-haired friend said it's in." But the waves washed his words away, and his father wasn't listening anyway. So the boy took a key from the great mermaid, unlocked the tin, found a heart of gold, still beating strong, so I'm told, and the heart flew out from the young boy's hand. All it wanted was home, and in 2 seconds flat, it was back inside the man. And that is why, on that day, Golden Heart Sr. cried all day. He made rivers and lakes with his sweet, loving tears, and he lived happily for years and years. He always listened to what his heart did say. And why would I tell you that story? It's okay, you don't have to be kind of I wrote that story in response to a very personal experience of a man that I was deeply in love with. I had a relationship with him, and he couldn't feel his feelings, and so I wrote that poem. And I went on to have many relationships with men who couldn't feel their feelings. That seems to be fairly common. But then I discovered that in fact it's not only men who can't feel their feelings. You know, there are children who can't feel their feelings. There are women who can't feel their feelings increasingly in our culture. And I went from feeling that it was a personal story to feeling that it was a societal story as well, a sociological story. So, Thomas Berry said, "We are in danger right now because we are between stories. We haven't got the right story. We're in between stories." And I spent a lot of time looking for the right story, the magic story, the silver bullet that would cure all our problems. You know, I was on this hunt, on this journey to look for the story. But maybe I misinterpreted what he really meant. And then I read Dr. Martin Shaw, who, to my great relief, he said, he often hears that people are looking for the story, maybe inspired by that quote about us being in danger because we're between stories. And he said, but you know, the perfect stories for our culture arrived 5,000 years ago. We just forgot them, and we forgot how to relate to them. And I would say, standing on this ground, standing on this ancient land, with this ancient beautiful culture that still, despite everything, survives, that we could say, actually those stories, we can't even count how long ago they came, but we just forgotten them. And Charles Eisenstein quotes from Thich Nhat Hanh, who talks about the story of interbeing, and says that we are the end of the age of separation, the end of the story of separation, and we need to move in, or he says we are moving in to the story of interbeing, the story where we understand the delightful and amazing and ecstatic interconnectedness of everything. And so I tell the story of Golden Heart, even though it's kind of a personal story from a personal experience that you could say is just about masculinity. But the beauty of stories and metaphor is that they live on many levels, and everybody takes the metaphor. If you can get your head around a metaphor, your heart around a metaphor, everyone takes that medicine in the way that they need it. You may take it as a personal story, you can take it as a sociological story. Change the story, change the system. To be human is to tell stories. I mean, maybe the song of the humpback whale is a big story that we don't understand, but it is distinct about humanity that we tell stories. In fact, you could say that human culture is an elaborate weave, a tapestry of stories. Law is a story. Economy is a story. Gender is a story. Love is a story. Politics is definitely a story, yes? We live in these stories, and George Monbiot, who was quoted earlier, which Richard referred to in the introduction, George Monbiot talks about stories are the organising principles of people's lives. And that's what Nagara has been unpacking, the neoliberal story that has become the organising principle for people's lives. And he says, you cannot just say, that story is dead and dysfunctional, let it go. It's like a dog with a bone, you know, we've got to have another story. We can't let it go until we have a new story. And that is what some of the potential of activists who are telling the stories, Annie telling the story of what's possible, the activists here, Sasha telling the story of what's possible, new stories, and old stories, listening to the Indigenous people and their stories of deep connection to country that we've forgotten, that we long for. I had the great privilege of being at the Fields of Healing Festival, which I highly recommend you go to next year. It was so, so beautiful. And that was the story. It's the story of the ancient ones. And we long for that. And our ancestors, when you go back far enough, even in the Western culture, if you go back far enough, our ancestors told those stories of interbeing too. We were deeply rooted in the earth. We knew that. Change the story, change the system. So the three things that I would say, I've already said one, change the story, change the system. And I would also say, so Dr. Martin Shaw talks about how when he tells a story, people say, oh, I was so enchanted by your story. And he says, I don't want to enchant people, I want to wake them up. I want to wake them up. And this is what Nagara is doing, waking people up from the neoliberal story, the neoliberal enchantment. If you want to think of enchantment as a negative thing, but I disagree. I think enchantment is also a positive thing. Just as anything can be bad. Medicine can be unhealthy or helpful. Anything can be good or bad. It always has a flip side. And the same with enchantment. You can become enchanted into become some kind of a zombie enacting the dominant script of your culture, or you can be re-enchanted. There's another word I love called enchantivism, which was coined by Dr. Chalquist, who's into deep psychology, and he talks about being re-enchanted with a love for the world, the wonder of the cosmos, the divinity of our incredibly sublime planet and everything about it. To fall in love again with ourselves and our wondrous self. To fall in love again with each other and humanity. And there's so much to feel disheartened about. How can we fall in love with ourselves and each other and fall in love with every single species on the planet and this beautiful interconnected biosphere that we love so dearly, and everything that we've done, everything that all the peril that we are in has been created by the imagination, by the mind, and by the amazing myth, the Shambhala warrior, which Joanna Macy brought to the West, talks about that all of this destruction is caused by Manomaya. It's all from the imagination, which means it can be undone by the imagination. But we may want to think that technology will save us, but it's not going to be technology and it's not going to be thinking. Just as Einstein said, you cannot solve a problem with the same thinking that got you into the problem. You have to have a different approach to get out of it, and I feel it's a revolution of the heart. And other people are saying that. Nothing less is called for than a revolution of the heart, and that's why I told you golden heart. And so if I were to invite you to do anything, I would say, go to your rusty tin. Take the key from the mermaid. Tune into the divine. Listen to the wind. Listen to the ocean. Take the key. Unlock the tin your heart is in. And let it fly back to wherever it is, and help everyone around you do that too. And I will finish.
Finish somewhere with, we are stardust, we are golden, we are billion-year-old carbon caught in the devil's bargain, and we've got to get ourselves back to the garden.